Welkom bij Studio Herinner de podcast. Mijn naam is Ralph de Boer en ik ben jullie host voor deze nieuwe serie. Studio Herinner is een podcast voor en door jongeren en wij zijn geïnteresseerd in wat een onvrije samenleving is en wat een vrije samenleving kan zijn. Niet alleen zijn we geïnteresseerd in ideeën rondom herinneren, maar ook rondom herdenken. Want hoe kunnen we ingrijpende gebeurtenissen herdenken als de mensen die ze hebben meegemaakt er niet meer zijn? I'm not gonna do that alone. I have 3 guests with me. I'm gonna talk in English because you're all international. And today's theme is about flight, fear and oppression. Khaled Chujaa, do I speak it correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. You have experienced fleeing. Mm-hmm. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Khaled Chujaa. I'm originally from Syria. I lived in Ukraine for 7 years, and during the war, I had to flee to here.
You lived in Syria and Ukraine,
yeah.
So that's quite a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's a bit complicated because I moved a lot. I originally born in Kuwait, then I went back to Syria, then to Emirates, then to Ukraine, and now here. So, yeah, it's a bit complicated.
Yes, I can imagine. And Natalia Grazina, yes, you also have experienced fleeing, right?
Yes and no, because I don't consider myself as a refugee, but I was born and raised in Sevastopol, Ukraine, and in 2014, Crimea was occupied by Russia. So that's one of maybe the most important reason why I decided to move to another country, because of political situation. And now I work and live in Rotterdam.
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about that later on this episode. Joe Willoughby, you worked with refugees in Calais, right?
Yeah, I've volunteered and worked in Calais and Dunkirk and other places also. Yeah.
Yes. Can you tell me something about your work?
Well, I'm an artist and I work in an art institution now, but I've also done a lot of different types of work. Primarily because as an artist, I've done a lot of workshops and more educational kind of projects. So
what kind of artist are you? Sorry, maybe that's a very difficult...
A lazy one. All sorts of things, like lately, mainly kind of writing and sound music pieces with my partner. But yeah, I've done all different kinds of things. But yeah, I've also always been interested in how people can interact with artists or artwork, and more of like an engagement kind of focus of my work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that also led me to be interested of how, to be creative with people in these kind of border situations and stuff. But also just from a political perspective, I wanted to go to these places to see how, what's happening, what's the reality.
Yes.
So that wasn't work. That was kind of volunteering or, following my politics.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. Natalia, we'll start with you. You have not fled, but you moved from Ukraine to here. Is there a specific memory that's still in your head about this war in Ukraine right now?
Maybe I don't have a really specific memory because when the full-scale invasion in Ukraine started, I was already here.
Yes.
So I witnessing all what is going on now in Ukraine only through like social media, from news or from the talks with my family in Kiev. They fled also.
But in the Crimea, when it was taken over, did you have any memories from right then when you lived there?
Yeah, of course I have memories, but memory is very plastic, so it also changes with the time. And of course, when occupation started, so all the people were busy just to solve some ordinary things. So probably it wasn't like a space a lot to think about politics, to ask questions, all the stuff. So we needed to think about very small things, how to organize, manage our life. And I remember all of that. Of course, I remember, like, for example, referendum and soldiers who stayed near the doors. So you are going to vote, but still under pressure. But only like after 10 years, for example, or 5 or 7 years, when you're already in a safe place, you started to analyze what happened. So started to ask questions. And of course, at this moment, memory started to change.
Yes.
So,
and you're an artist yourself?
Yes.
Can you explain how you use these memories in your work?
In my art practice, I started to use memory as a tool quite a long time ago, because I was born and raised in Sevastopol, and this city has a huge military story. And this military history, this war heritage is everywhere. But I wanted to distance myself from that, and only when I moved to Netherlands and I had this time and space distance, so I started to think about my identity, like anybody who has like migration experience. Who am I? Where I'm from? And I realized that this war heritage, all this memory about the war, it's also influenced on me and influenced a lot on my personality. And to understand myself in the first place, I started to use memory and all this background in my art.
Yes. And can you give an example in how you incorporate this in your work, in your art?
For example, I have a project, 100 Years War, and this project divided in chapters. And the first chapter is totally dedicated to the story of my grandmother. And I did objects, and for every object was kind of fairy tale is written. But why I turned to kind of fictional way of telling my grandmother's story? Because of sometimes she told me about the war, but sometimes she was silenced about the war. So a lot of memory is absent. Using fairy tales style in narrative helped me to fill gaps in her story. And just to fill these gaps, I decided to kind of to make it by myself.
Yes.
And in the end, it was kind of not only her story, but also my story too. And through these texts and through the objects, people also put their stories into that. And for example, in my exhibition, we are not talking only about my personal experience, only about like Second World War in Europe, but also how it was in Japan, how it was in Russia or Ukraine or somewhere else. So it's kind of war is very universal thing. So it doesn't matter how you experience it. We're kind of all united in this experience.
Yes. Because Khaled, I think you might agree to this.
Yeah, I can relate a lot for it.
Do you talk about these themes much with your family?
We talk about it, but not so direct, because we know everybody has his problem and been through something. So we don't talk much about it because we want to remember the happy memories more than the tragic ones.
Yes.
Because you need to move on your life. You can't stuck with the memories. So we basically focused on the happy things. We know how it's influenced everybody. And we want the next generation to really know how war is bad, how it's affect everybody in everything.
Can you tell me something about the events, the situation, how you moved and how you fled?
Okay. And Syria was not an immediate fleeing because I had some times. I also have a residency in Emirates, so I could go there and think, where should I go? But in Ukraine, it was so fast. In 3 days, I had to decide everything, just get my backpack and move so fast because there is no much time to think about it.
What did you take with you?
2 hoodies because it was so cold, like -5 or 10. A blanket because I didn't know where I can sleep. Bottle of water. My laptop, my phone, and my sketchbook.
That was it.
Yeah, I couldn't handle to get a big backpack.
No.
Yeah.
And did you flee alone or with family or friends?
Yeah, alone.
Alone.
Yeah, because it was so chaotic. Nobody won't know what was going on or what will go on. And in that moment, we didn't know, is there a train to go out or not? Because everything was shut down. You open social media, you don't find any news. So, I just heard, the train is open right now. I can go and wait.
Yeah.
So that's why I got the blanket.
And was your family still there, or did they?
No, my family actually didn't go to Ukraine.
Oh, yes.
I was studying there. It was a distant thing.
Okay. Yeah. How do you look back at the you're fleeing from Ukraine? What did you experience during that time?
Everything, I guess. Because in some moment you shut every emotion and you just started your surviving mood emotion that you just need to think about everything realistically and put your emotion aside. So in that moment, you just observing everything, what's happened. Is there a noise? Is there a sound? Is there bombing? You hear everything, and you're just focusing to go to the point exactly. My point was first to go from my home to the train station, from train station to find the train, and from that, it's a bit horrible travel with the train. Yeah, and after that, to the city, that's Lviv, that's on the border of Poland. Then from Poland to Germany, from Germany to here. So it was always just thinking, I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific memory that you think about in this experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 2 memory actually. The first one was the first bombing because I was sleeping and I had the class at morning. So I wake up a little bit early. I'm just dressing up and everybody started to call on me. You didn't hear what's going on. You didn't open social media. And it was just 5 or 6 in the morning. Realizing everything and start to open social media in 2 hours and realizing all the information was going on was stuck a little bit. And there was the train travel because it was horrible. It was 24 hours in the train and there is no place to sit. There is no place to do anything. It was overly crowded and you hear the bomb in every stop they stop. So the train was always in my mind.
Joe, do you recognize this story? I can imagine you heard a lot of these in your work.
There's so many different stories, all different versions of traveling or moving that I've heard. But also I think I never really sought to ask people about their stories.
Why not?
Yeah, I think like as a sort of white European person in this kind of, like refugee camp environment, there can be this kind of extractive feeling, like especially when there's a lot of photographers or people who come to maybe, this kind of voluntourism, they call it, to do their good thing and then leave. It can feel a bit of an extractive relationship maybe when people are always defined on their journey up until that point, or being a refugee or being a migrant. So I think I was mostly trying not to fall into that kind of interaction and just being people together, which is obviously a very simplistic attitude because there's a big difference of like privilege or also right to move between countries. But I don't want to be this person who's like, oh, so how did you become a refugee?
Because you're agreeing.
Because all refugees, they don't want to defined by the worst thing that happened to them. They want to just treat as a human. So it's bad that the first look at them like, you are a refugee from there because this happened and this happened. So the interaction as a normal interaction or a normal and talking with a human, like how's your day, how's everything, it's more than give me your story.
Exactly. Like I want this from you to justify me being here as doing this good thing or something. And more just connecting with people, which is a very basic
and
thing.
That's what's needed.
Like
not
exactly.
more than that.
Because there's a lot of, obviously in these situations, people have been through a lot of dehumanization as well, from the police, from the border controls. It's not being seen as fully human. And then I feel to then try and extract the story of, like you say, the worst moment in someone's life is to also dehumanize, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, also if people want to talk about that.
But how do you find like common ground with these people?
I mean, it depends where I've been. I think, like, for example, sometimes in Calais, there's a lot of people there's a lot of young people and a lot of single men and a lot of just people who want to hang around listening to music together and dancing or maybe drawing or just chatting, eating, sharing tea or, so I think it's existing around each other. And even though there's obvious privilege differences of people, in the end of the day, I'm going to go and sleep in a bed and you're going to go and sleep in a tent, but then somehow there's a way that we can find some moment of connection on a human level.
And the thing is that what's also difficult is when you work at a border, you have to deal with like the rules of who can come in and who gets to stay at the border. You have to see which restrictions there are being made, right? How do you feel about that?
It's crazy. I mean, what happens on behalf of Europe and Europeans, I think probably a lot of people don't really understand what happens at European borders.
Can you give a small explanation what happens there?
Well, it depends on the country, to be honest. Like, I can only talk on behalf of what I've
you've
seen.
been.
For example, the last place, like I said, was the border of Italy and France, which is in theory an open border. Like you can just go through it, especially as a European person. There are like certain checkpoints, but mostly people just drive through or something. But there are also a lot of routes that people take when they're, say, traveling from, Afghanistan, say, or an African country, or where they go through the Alps, for example. And then there's a lot of border policing. And for example, I was in a skiing village. So it's very strange that in the daytime you have these people skiing across borders, mainly a lot of white people, skiing across borders in their colorful skiing clothes. And then at night you have the police patrolling the border, stopping people crossing, especially like black or brown people who don't look like they're going to ski at night. And so it's a very surreal situation, or a kind of juxtaposition of experience, I think. You know, there's a lot of oppression for some people in a place that's essentially like a fun holiday town. So it's very much a dual life.
Yes, it also feels a bit like uninterested or something if I don't ask you about these stories. You know, it's almost like maybe you want to talk about it, or it's such an important event, I think. So I am curious, like how do you feel telling the story again and over and over again?
It helps to share for sure, and telling your story, and people know where's your background, what everything happened, and it's helped you personally by sharing, and by talking about it, it become easier in your mind. But in the same time, you don't want to identify by it, because you are complex human with everything. So it's part of you, but it doesn't define you.
No. Yeah. How does it feel to talk about this fleeing?
Sometimes it's heavy, and sometimes it's just a normal conversation. Because during everything, there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things happen. So you can't recall everything. A little bit difficult, I can say.
Because what emotions are you experiencing if you talk about this?
A heaviness, I guess. Because there is small details that you don't see it, but you feel it. For example, when you see how the military is stopping everybody to go to the train, and just Ukrainian, you feel alienized. And you start to seek any help, but you find it in someone. Like I found someone to just give me a roof under his house. So, and we connected a little bit because Russian was invading Ukraine, and he know that Russian also have a part in Syrian war. So we connected on this part, and it's on the same city. So you see the conflict between somebody alienized you and somebody like humanized you. And it was in the same day. So it's a lot of emotion.
Yes. Do you want to reply to that, Joe?
No, I just thought it was very beautiful what you said. Yeah, this like in the same day to feel alienized and humanized. Yeah, because also it's not like a simple story, like you say. It's like a very complex thing of feeling relieved, feeling scared, feeling
exactly.
Just thought it was interesting.
There is a lot of emotions combined, so I can't say like I felt just that, or I was just scared, or I just was. There was everything, and like I didn't recognize every emotion until after a while. Like the first emotion, or the first thing I start to realize after I crossed the border, and I went to Warsaw, capital of Poland. So I found some place to stay, and that was my first look into a mirror after 4 or 5 days. 4 of them just on the road. I started to realize everything. What's went on.
How did you look after 4 days?
Horrible.
What did you see?
Scratches. My body full of red pimples. I I took a shower and there start to see like a black water going on. It was horrible. But yeah, it was a relief in the same time. Like, everything went on. I'm safe right now. And that time, like, I could contact to my family. I got to speak to everyone because in this 4 days, I was saving my phone charging for everything, and I could not contact everybody and tell them what's going on because everything going on. The realization of what everything happened, it shocked me in the first day, but the feeling of safety like was overwhelming.
How do you try to process these experiences being that impactful? Natalia, can you start?
What you thought about your emotions, that's because when you're in the moment, it's really hard to recognize these emotions. So that's why I'm thinking that time is important thing in the process of remembering and memorizing, because only from this time distance, space distance, it's possible to build this clear picture of what's happened.
Yeah.
And of course, when the full-scale invasion started in Ukraine, some memories returned for me. So some new processes of rethinking of history, of past, of some recent events, they started anew.
But doesn't it also feel frustrating that history repeats itself in different forms?
Of course, it's frustrating because we had already a huge amount of wars, very destructive. But it's still, people haven't learned that it's kind of not a good way to do something with life. Why we still do need these wars? But they are happening all the time. And now we see, so it's like more and more. So for some people, it's like you look to life through art or through religion or through like history, business, anything. For some people, they look onto life through war. So, and all their life based on the war. I don't know. Of course, it's very frustrating, but also on a personal level, what can we do with that? So it's like when you're alone, you cannot like stop all the wars. So that's equation to community, to do something on a bigger scale, like all the people try to stop it or not to repeat it. Mm-hmm. But I think that these wars are continue to happen also because we don't want to learn nothing from the past. We try to forget this and not to look back, not to reflect, not to ask questions, because it's difficult. It's very complex discussions about that. But the thing is, we are not learning nothing.
No, I think that's the importance of commemoration, right?
Yes.
To commemorate what has happened. Do you have specific ways in commemorating what has happened?
I use universal language of metaphor and symbolism, and so my projects, they are all based on a personal story, but at the same time they are fictional.
Can you give an example of a symbol you use?
One of the symbols which I often use, for example, heart. Like shape of heart, and I have a lot of objects like that, and but they all have different stories. For example, I have object in a heart shape, but it's wounded. So, and this object was a part of exhibition about my grandmother, about the story that she always tried to remember only happy moments and not to remember something bad what happened during the war. But of course, in my mind, I imagine that during this conversation, when she kind of tried to soften all these difficult memories. Her heart was wounded already. It was bleeding. And for her, it was really hard sometimes to tell about the war. So she became silent. But heart was still bleeding. But this kind of symbol, which is very universal. So our visitors of exhibitions, they could put their stories into this object. So for me, it's I think that's what you told before, that emotions are very important, but sometimes it's really hard to give this message clear.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they could be more powerful, these images, because a lot of communication goes without words.
Khaled, do you have specific ways in commemorating what has happened?
Yeah, I think it's more talking about it and share it. Because you need to give the knowledge for the next generation, and they need to have the full information about not normalizing the war, because it's not a normal thing to happen. Even if it's repeated itself, and even if it's part of our human histories, but it's still not a normal thing to happen. So, talking about it and give the real knowledge for everybody is really important. I'm not sharing it much, but I can relate to share it by just give it the story.
And for yourself, do you have rituals to commemorate what has happened?
Actually, I'm more a bit distant right now, and I'm doing my art, I'm more expressionist, so I expression my emotion and what's going on in that moment. So in the beginning when I came here, the first few months I was just drawing the whole time just to put all my emotion on it. And right now I'm more in a better place, so my art changed to a happier form. So I can tell my emotion or give my emotion that moment. But I think words reach faster.
Sorry, what?
Words reach faster than giving the emotion, because the emotion you
think so? Yeah,
the emotion you will feel it, but you will not have the full vision. You need to have the emotion and you need to feel that emotion, but you need to know the story too.
Joe, you just said that treating people or like getting common ground by listening to music or making art. Do you think, because you both tell me like art is like an expression to process all this, do you think that works to connect people in your work, like find a common ground in art or expression?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you can express how you're feeling or what you've been through, but also you can distract yourself. You can learn, you can teach each other creative things. I mean, one of the things I have to say that really sticks in my mind in Calais was, there's obviously a lot of people there, and some people are creative, some people aren't. But even to just be able to like write something about your experience is difficult there, because people were constantly having their belongings destroyed by the police, for example. So I remember like offering a guy a notebook because he said he really enjoyed writing poetry. And he said, well, there's no point at me having a notebook because the police are going to take it, So I think in a very basic way, it's, for everyone, creativity is really something important, that can easily be taken or, So I think it's really important to have that in life, this way to be creative and express yourself.
I want to ask you guys the last question. We've talked about like migrating and fleeing, but I'm curious about how do you feel about being put inside of a box, being a migrant or a refugee, and the difference between that, and you having to deal with the differences on a political level. Khaled, how does it feel to be called a refugee? Or
it's the whole thing is a bit strange because you don't see it much, only in this specific situations. So in the beginning, when I came here, I fled from Ukraine, but I was Syrian, and so when I went for refugee application, they told me, you can't apply as a Syrian because you fled from Ukraine. But in that moment, I don't have, I can't go back to Ukraine and I can't go back to Syria. So they put me in a box where is not much people went there. Because even from my documentation and paperwork, everything was mess. They could not put me as a Syrian refugee and they could not put me as Ukrainian refugee. So in the beginning, they give me just a protection residency for 1 year so they can find a solution for the situation. So after 1 year without any information what will happen or what's going on, they told me we resigned you a lawyer and you have an appointment the next week for the next 3 days. So I had to prepare all my document. I just go to I say it is interview, but actually it's a bit investigation. So how they define or they called me, it changed from someone who have protection to someone who is refugee in just 1 day or 3 days.
Yes, you were a unique figure.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is no clear law for what's my situation. Well,
no.
Yeah. So everything was chaotic and nothing clear.
How did you experience that, Natalia?
Yeah, for me, everything was much easier. So because I just, from the beginning, I had different status. So, but of course, like any immigration experience, it's difficult in many ways. So a lot of challenges and, but I think that what both the same for refugees and for just migrants, it's a complicated bureaucratic process. So it's also started to become a part of identity, all these applications and all this stuff. But again, I don't consider myself a refugee, no matter that I moved because of political situation, just because my migration experience was much, much easier. And I just came to Netherlands. So, and of course, I also waited for visa and all that stuff. And it was very stressful, but there is nothing to compare between our experiences. So,
Joe, what do you think about these differences in experiences just because of the nationality?
I guess from my perspective, I would see myself as I don't really agree with borders and this, I am against borders. So I also see all of these categories as a way to exclude people or as a way to define who is the good migrant, who is the bad migrant, the refugee. Well, maybe right-wing people and fascists hate refugees, but by law, they are the good migrant. Or the highly skilled person who leaves to work and bring capital to the new country is the good migrant, but the criminal or the unskilled person is maybe the bad migrant, or the person who broke the law to arrive is the bad migrant. So I sort of see refugee as one of these ways of defining who is good and bad in a situation. I mean, obviously, I know that it's an important thing for people to be able to gain this status officially to fit into the legal ways of life. But yeah, I find the language interesting.
No, so maybe the term is being used wrongly.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone should be able to go anywhere. Just to clarify that, I don't think that there are bad migrants and good migrants. I'm just, reiterating.
But just not everybody is a refugee.
By law, yeah. But I think the language versus the law is very different. I would say, like the language that we use in conversations, you know, you're asking mainly about refugees for one reason or another. And if we were instead to be talking about migrants, you know, it would be a different conversation maybe in a way. So
I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for your stories. It was really interesting. We are already at the end of the second episode of Studio Herinner Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Thank you very much and see you next time.